Coming up on the FSR Sarc Fighter podcast, the best way you can help fight sarcoidosis today.
One of the things that I've been really touched by is the resilience and hope that I'm seeing.
Cathi Davis and Jennifer Bulandr from the Foundation for Sarcoidosis Research join me to look back at a year of success and to chart the way forward in the fight against sarcoidosis.
We had some very generous donations last year that really were critical in our efforts of funding more research. This past year, we raised it over 250% compared to years in past towards all of our smaller grants, our cardiac grant, our fellowship. So it's really exciting to get this amazing contributions to be able to put it towards the sarcoidosis research.
This is the Sarc Fighter podcast, living with sarcoidosis and other rare diseases. Here's your host, John Carlin.
Well, hello, this is episode 128 of the FSR Sarc Fighter podcast. I'm your host, John Carlin. I got to point out, this will be the last podcast before Christmas of 2024, so Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to everyone. I can't believe another year has flown by so quickly, and we'll be looking back at the year in sarcoidosis, if you will, and also a look forward to the year in sarcoidosis as we get into the interview portion of today's podcast. But I've got some other stuff I want to talk about first. Let me remind you that I do the podcast because I want everybody to understand what's going on with the disease, to help give you a sense of hope as you deal with this unpredictable disease. Sometimes that means talking about advances in medications. Sometimes it just talks about the status of research on FSR, and there's a lot of research going on out there. And then there's all the different things that a group like FSR does, which is, in that whole advocacy realm. And FSR is doing so much. They've put us in front of the FDA this year. They've increased the amount of patient outreach. So there's so many different things. They're funding new research, so many different things. And I try to report all this information to you. I just don't have time to tell you everything, but I kind of cherry pick the interesting notes as they come across my desk. And the longer I do this, the more people I talk to, the more of those kinds of notes or emails or discussions that I'm involved in, and so I can share that stuff with you. But it's so hard, right, with sarcoidosis, because you never know if your case is getting worse, if it'll go away by itself, if the medications you're taking will work or continue to work, or if the medication like prednisone, we've talked about it many, many times, the side effects can be worse than sarcoidosis itself. I would argue that in my case, that was the situation when I was on heavy doses of prednisone. So I just try to kind of get it out there. And then, I interview a lot of patients. And when they talk about their situation, you can compare it to your own. Maybe it's better, maybe it's worse. Maybe it's the same, but usually it's some version of, man, that's a terrible situation. It's different than mine, but I certainly can empathize with that person. And you can see how this is such a snowflake disease because no two situations are the same. So the idea is just to get everything out there. So speaking of that, a little bit of bad news here. Kinevent is one of the companies that has joined me on the podcast several times, and they were trying to bring a new drug to market, but they are reporting as of this month that the drug has essentially failed its latest round of testing and clinical trials, and they will no longer be taking it forward. Now, if you're a regular listener, you might remember that I've had Rainey Rogers, who's the Senior Director of Patient Advocacy, and Bill Gerhardt, the CEO of Kinevent, on the podcast numerous times, whether it's Rainey or Bill. But Rainey sent me an email with this news, and I want to report the important parts to you. And this was kind of unexpected because I had so much optimism that maybe I was turning a blind eye to the reality of how drug testing works. But it says, "Dear John, we'd like to inform you the top-line results of the Kinevant Phase 2 Resolve Lung study demonstrate that namilumab does not provide a treatment benefit for patients with chronic active pulmonary sarcoidosis." She says, "Please find the key results below. The primary endpoint, namilumab failed to meet the primary endpoint of proportion of subjects with a rescue event during the double-blind period. Secondary endpoints. Secondary efficacy endpoints, including change in percent predicted forced vital capacity, corticosteroid tapering success, and change in the King's Sarcoidosis Questionnaire, were consistent with the primary endpoint and failed to show a treatment effect. In terms of safety, the safety profile of namilumab in Resolve Lung remains similar to previous studies." So I believe that that's saying there that the drug was safe overall, but it just wasn't effective. So the email continues, "With these results, Kinevant will be discontinuing further development of namilumab for the treatment of sarcoidosis. Kinevant is committed to publishing the results of Resolve Lung to inform future sarcoidosis research. Please find the associated press release here for more information." I'll put a link to that, to the press release, in the show notes. Meanwhile, while these study results are disappointing for all involved, the participation of patients and study site research teams have been an important and valuable step to understanding how to further the science for sarcoidosis. And she says, "We are grateful for your support and collaboration to allow us to reach this milestone. Thank you for your partnership and commitment to developing new therapies for rare diseases. Please let us know if you're interested in scheduling time to further discuss." And that's interesting. But I can remember when I was working in the public relations agency business in particular, sometimes no as an answer allowed you to just move on, right? You did some research, maybe you pitched something to a potential client and they waffled a little bit, but it's like, but when you hear no, then that's the end of that. It's time to move on to something else. I don't know, maybe that's a bad analogy, but it is sad news from Kinevant. And I could tell in talking to them that there was a lot of early evidence to suggest that it was worth moving forward with namilumab, and they gambled millions and millions of dollars doing this research and this testing, right? I mean, you don't put that out there unless you think you've got a candidate for success, but in the end, it just didn't pan out. I can tell you, though, on the plus side, on another drug, so far things are going well with the other drug that I've talked about a lot here on the podcast. It's a company called aTyr, and they have a drug called efzofitimod. That drug, which is being tested as a steroid-sparing agent, which means potentially a replacement for prednisone, that continues to show promise. So steroid-sparing means that it spares you the agony of having to use the steroid prednisone, and that's continuing to show promise. So, I hate all the jargon that comes with these, but the folks in the pharmaceutical world have to speak that language, and I try to turn it into common language wherever it's appropriate, or explain it or whatever, because that's one of the things that I do on TV news, right? The police or legal or medical, or you name the sectors that we do stories on. Everybody has their own internal jargon, and my job is to refine that so that the average person can consume it easily, right? So anyway, I'm going off a little bit about steroid-sparing agent, but I think on its face that's pretty understandable. And back in my when I was just reading you from Rainey on the Kinevant update. There's a lot of that kind of language in there. So I hope that's understandable. But anyway, a little bit, I went off on a tangent there. I apologize. But aTyr's drug efzofitimod is looking good. On November 7th, the company reported, stand by for some more jargon here, we achieved a significant milestone this quarter by completing enrollment in our global pivotal phase 3 EFZO-FIT study in pulmonary sarcoidosis, and top-line data is expected in the third quarter of 2025, said Sanjay Shukla, MD, MS, President and Chief Executive Officer of aTyr. And Sanjay has been on the show, I believe, 3 times. The news release continues. Additionally, our efzofitimod program was featured in this year's Best of Chest Journal session at the Chest 2024 annual meeting, and we recently published favorable steroid relapse data for efzofitimod in the European Respiratory Journal. These events have generated increased interest in efzofitimod and the potential promise it holds to be a transformative therapy for patients. The third quarter 2024 and subsequent period highlights include completed enrollment in the global pivotal phase 3 EFZO-FIT study to evaluate the efficacy and safety of efzofitimod in patients with pulmonary sarcoidosis. The study enrolled 268 patients with pulmonary sarcoidosis at 85 centers in 9 countries, which exceeded the targeted enrollment. Top-line data, again, from the study expected in the third quarter of 2025. So that's good news, right? And that is, I was giving you directly from the news release that came out recently from the folks over at aTyr. So keep your fingers crossed on that one, right? All right, there's more good news, and that revolves around all the progress that has been made on other fronts, whether it's outreach directly to the FDA or to patients and their families in many other areas. It was really, this past year was a banner year for FSR, the most progress probably ever. And there are plans to take it further in 2025, and we'll be talking about how you can make that happen, help make that happen, coming up next on the FSR Sarc Fighter podcast.
I feel like a zombie, just feeding and stumbling.
Hi, I hope you're enjoying the Sarc Fighter podcast. You may be wondering, what can I do to help? How can I be a part of the sarcoidosis solution? It's simple. Make a donation to KISS, Kick In to Stop Sarcoidosis. 100% of the money goes to the Foundation for Sarcoidosis Research. Look for a link in the show notes of the Sarc Fighter podcast. Welcome back to the FSR Sarc Fighter podcast. I tell you, this is the time of year when nonprofits depend upon their supporters to step up, and we're going to talk about that here as we come to the end of 2024. And joining me now is Cathi Davis with FSR, and also Jennifer Bulandr, who is the development manager for FSR. And Cathi, you've been with us for a long time now. You've been on the show several times. And Jennifer, I believe this is the first time you've been on the show, but welcome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thanks for having us, John.
sure. Yeah. So, this is, I'm on a bunch of local boards here in Roanoke, Virginia, and every single one of them is doing what FSR is doing, because they know this is the time of year that people are most likely to want to give to the organizations that are important to them. And I want to make sure that everybody hears from FSR how important it is to be thinking about giving at this time of year. And Jennifer, I know that you guys have got a campaign going. Why don't you just outline what the year-end campaign is?
Yeah, thank you so much. Our year-end campaign is called Gratitude and Giving. This is an annual event that we have. This year, since I'm new to FSR and I've been meeting all sorts of patients and families, one of the things that I've been really touched by is the resilience and hope that I'm seeing. And so Our campaign this year is called Gratitude and Giving, Celebrating Resilience and Inspiring Hope. And that is for all of the patients and the medical teams, the families, the caregivers, everybody who's touched by sarcoidosis. This is a very special initiative, and it focuses on celebrating the community while raising critical funds that we all know that we need to advance our mission. And during this time of year, this kind of year end, we always come together to show appreciation for those who have been a part of the fight against sarcoidosis and those who want to inspire hope for the future by funding the research and patient support services that FSR provides. The campaign also is an opportunity to make a lasting impact and helps us fund breakthrough research, expand resources, and hopefully brings us closer to finding a cure.
And that's what we all want, right?
Absolutely.
And you know, I've trumpeted the effectiveness of FSR over and over and over on the podcast, and I think people have seen the proof that FSR can really be effective when given the tools and the support that it needs. But why is it so? And there's different fundraisers throughout the year. Why is the year-end campaign so important?
Yeah, I think that the year-end one is really important because this is the time of year that people are looking to make an impact. Many people are wanting to support, to honor, and to maybe show gratitude or give tribute to, unfortunately, those in our lives that have passed. And so our year-end campaign really can encompass all of those things. Internally, it obviously helps us work towards our mission, which, as you know, is to stop sarcoidosis and improve the lives of those impacted by this disease.
Yeah, so last year, if I'm not mistaken, FSR had a big increase in funding. Something along the lines of $800,000 or thereabouts. And that's the kind of stuff that comes from support, right?
Absolutely. Oh, yes, go ahead,
Yeah.
Cathi.
Jump in,
No,
Cathi.
yeah.
Yeah.
We had some very generous donations last year that really were critical in our efforts of funding more research. This past year, I think raised it over 250% compared to years in past towards all of our smaller grants, our cardiac grant, our fellowship. So it's really exciting to get this amazing contributions to be able to put it towards the sarcoidosis research.
Yeah, one of the things that I know that FSR is really proud of is that the expansion of the Global Sarcoidosis Clinic Alliance. Cathi, do you want to talk a little bit about that and how, funding has, because when you get right down to the clinics, when you're supporting the clinics, they've got more resources. So when the patients walk in the door, there's more there for the patient. So it goes directly to the patient, right?
Right. We've been able to expand. We have over 40 clinics now across the US, and looking to expand even further, in the coming years. In March of this year, we were able to host our very first volunteer patient leadership training conference, which was held at the Cleveland Clinic in Ohio. And we had 26 patient volunteer leaders from 16 states, I believe. And they all came together, and it was just an incredible experience being able to get with everyone and learn. And we got to do a tour of the Cleveland Clinic too. And they're all doing such amazing things locally in their own networks, which is really important because it's hard to find support, especially in lots of different areas. So we're really excited about the future of this alliance.
Sure. And Jennifer, if you would, there's a lot of patient programming that FSR does, right? And it takes money to do all of these things, but the cool thing about FSR is I see it kind of like the hub, and then there's all these spokes that come off of the hub of the wheel, if you will. And so some of that money goes to research and some of it goes to working with the different clinics and so forth, but some of it goes directly to patient support, patient programming. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think wheel and hub idea is exactly a great one. The patient programming that FSR provides is multifaceted. We have in-person, online, as well as community support groups. We have a patient navigator program where we have 9 trained patients that can offer one-on-one support to newly diagnosed patients. I know in 2024 we had over 25 patients take part in that program, which is amazing. We have a provider directory. We have a health plan toolkit, which is really amazing to bring with you when you're at your appointments. We have educational webinars that we host. Obviously, we're going to add your podcast as one of the resources that we are very happy to provide, as well as patient perspective blogs. I think it's really important for other patients and caregivers to read from people going through very similar situations. And then we have our patient summit, which is coming up in 2025.
Yeah, we haven't really talked much about that, and I don't know if you guys are ready to reveal the details or have a date or a location or anything, or should we wait? That's up to y'all. What do you think?
Well,
It's
I think it's a
it's
surprise.
So we'll
yeah,
just sit on it for now, Kathy, you think?
yeah, but it will be coming. It should be in the summer of 2025. And there will definitely be more information coming. And I can tell you it will be once again like a virtual experience.
Okay.
Although we are looking to host a lot of local events next year too, as part of our 25th anniversary.
So much going on at the foundation. I don't know how you guys get it all done. You must run from the time you get up in the morning to the time you go to bed at night. Cathi, can you talk a little bit more about some of the accomplishments when we look back at 2024? And we've talked a little bit about the services, and we've talked about some of the fundraising success. But in terms of what's pointed at the patient, can you talk a little bit more about some of the things that FSR has done in the past 12 months?
Yeah. I'd be remiss to not mention one of our biggest, most exciting initiatives this year. We had the opportunity to be one of, I think only 100 organizations have ever hosted an externally led patient-focused drug development with the FDA. And John, obviously, you know about this as you were
Yeah.
our wonderful host for this 6-hour event where we got to talk with the FDA. We had wonderful patient volunteers who were part of a panel. And also people got to call in and submit comments and share their experiences, all to kind of help guide the FDA, sharing their experiences so we can hopefully get to better therapies and more funding towards that. So that was an incredible, event this year. And next year, we're looking to compile all the, data and comments from that event into a voice of the patient report. So that's something we're really excited about for next year.
Okay, so that was one thing, and I can tell you that was well, not only was it a huge big deal, but it was a lot of moving parts. And that was a very heavy lift for the organization, wasn't it?
Yeah. Again, it's not something that everybody has access to be able to host one of these things. So it was definitely something that had been in the works for couple years at least. So we were really grateful to everyone who participated, to all of our hosts and sponsors who made it possible, and everyone who shared their experiences because without it, people don't know what's happening. And this was really the chance to get in front of the FDA and share that. So yeah, a lot went into it, and we're very grateful to the community for all their support.
Right. And I'll put it's still online. People can watch it, and they should watch it if they're a part of this community. If you're listening to this podcast, you have a stake in what's going on with sarcoidosis. And that would be, even if you just kind of skim through it and find the parts you like, because it is long, it's 5 hours. And hopefully members of the FDA are doing that as well, and really keeping sarcoidosis in front of them as they think about funding and everything that goes into developing new medicines and that kind of thing, new therapies. Now, the other thing that FSR has is the Scientific Advisory Board. So there are a group of the top researchers in the world who are there to either give us guidance or answer questions when we have an initiative. And that board was expanded in this past year. Can you talk about that a little bit, Cathi?
Yeah, that's really an exciting initiative this past year too, because the guidance of our scientific advisory board leads a lot of the work that we do. So it was a long process. We had some wonderful people who joined us, world-renowned experts from all over the world, and they really kind of reflect the diverse set of expertise in our history. And so being able to bring experts together from, all these different manifestations. We have new experts in, of course, pulmonology, genetics, rheumatology, neurology, cardiology. So we
All
really
the
try to
ists,
represent.
right? All the
Yeah.
ists that the people on the podcast come on and talk about. They don't have one doctor, they have six doctors, right?
Right,
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 right.
right.
So
Exactly. So yeah, we're really excited about this team being able to guide us and hopefully foster a multidisciplinary approach to advancing our research efforts to improve patient outcomes.
right. And again, we're talking about all this in the context of donors and people. I mean, you guys get funding from a number. You guys, I say you guys. I guess we could say we get funding from grants and all kinds of places, but a lot of it comes out of people's pockets. Um, and so one of the other things that FSR does that I'm really anxious for you all to talk about is the money that goes to research, right? Because we all know the prednisone story, and we all hate the prednisone story if we've been if it's touched our lives. And there's at least one new drug out there that's showing a lot of promise, but we need to have more get through. So, Cathi, again, I know that there was a lot of money provided to researchers in the past year. Can you share a little bit about that and how much money and how donor support helps there?
Right, right. So I think Jennifer and I discussed a little bit about that $800,000 that went towards research this year, which was a big increase to what we've been able to do in the past, which really, is credited to the amazing support that we've gotten from the community. And through this funding, we were able to fund two new early career researchers through our fellowship grants, and then five mid-year researchers through our pilot and cardiac grant funding. And we increased those numbers quite a bit than we've been able to do in the past. So they're working on some really exciting projects focused on, a lot of different areas as well, like cardiac, neurosarcoidosis, immune cell responses. So they're really hopefully on their way to identifying new biomarkers and hopefully lead to better therapies.
And Jennifer, you there wearing your development hat, that's got to make you feel so good, right? When FSR can provide that kind of funding and actually hit it where the rubber meets the road.
Absolutely. And this is where, when we say like every dollar counts, I'd like people to think that it is their dollars that went to this, that all of these programs, the research that we're doing, this is where that's coming from. And so it really and truly makes a difference. And, Cathi talked about being grateful for different programs, and we are so grateful to our donors and people who support us here.
Outstanding. And Cathi, this Coalition for Clinical Trial Equity is something that's been, I don't know if it was new in 2024 or if the seed was planted before that, but it's really starting to get some traction, isn't it? And that's one of the other things that funding goes to. Can you tell me what it is and how that works?
Yeah, I can tell you a little bit because we're doing like a big official launch in January. So I don't want to say too much about it, but
Okay.
it's basically this really exciting collaborative initiative to address the disparities in clinical trial participation. So a lot of people are probably familiar with our Ignore No More campaign, and then what followed that, the Act Now campaign, where we were able to release a white paper based on focus groups and a lot of surveys that we did and the congressional briefing that was held in DC. So this white paper basically came up with these findings of, how in particular Black African Americans are impacted by clinical trial participation and sarcoidosis at such a higher rate. And so the coalition basically stemmed from that research. So it brings together, I'm trying to remember how many there are. There's almost like 20, I think, different major companies that are part of our steering committee, who are working together to address those systemic barriers that prohibit and participation by Black patients with sarcoidosis to clinical trials. So we're really excited for the launch of this new coalition.
Yeah, we've talked about that a little bit on the podcast, and we talked about it in front of the FDA with our externally led panel there. But you look at this situation, you look at who is the most likely person to have sarcoidosis, and that's an African American female. And then you look at who is the least likely to get treatment or participate in a clinical trial, and that's an African American female, right? And that's because of all their barriers to being able to participate, whether they're financial, whether it's, a lot of times it comes down to childcare, pet care, having transportation, or the ability to participate in a clinical trial without losing their job. All types of things that really have to be looked at. And when you talk about the systemic stuff, that's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, like you said, there's a lot of different factors, physical, socioeconomic, systemic. Yeah, there's just a lot going on that, this coalition really hopes to address. And I think the first way to do that is by understanding it. So I think everyone who participated in the Act Now and the Ignore No More campaign, sharing their experiences, were really critical to help and drive this new coalition.
Yeah. Yep. Well, these are all important things, and there's so much to talk about. And again, we're all looking at this through the lens of, if people are in the giving mood as they hear this, as we approach the end of 2024, this is where your dollars go. This is the good work that's being done by the organization. And I just can't even begin to describe how much FSR has grown and expanded and become even more effective since I've been a part of it, since before this, about the time this podcast started. It's just going in so many wonderful directions and effective directions. It's not just, oh, here's a bunch of feel-good things, let's go out and try these. These are very targeted, specific initiatives that are working. And I think people need to hear that. So, Cathi, let me ask you, if people are listening right now and they're impressed by all the things we're talking about, and how could they not be, what can the individual person do in addition to giving?
Yeah, great question. And that's part of why we're so excited for this Gratitude and Given campaign that we've launched for this year end. And, Jennifer, feel free to pick up anything that I might leave out. But, really your support, obviously donations are extremely helpful, but there's a lot of other ways to get involved. If you're active on social media, there's a lot of messaging that's going to be shared from our account. So, even just liking them, sharing them, commenting on them, anything that kind of helps boost the algorithm so it gets in front of more people, that's really helpful. And there's, hashtags you can also use if you put out your own content or if you reshare them. Hashtag sarcoidosis, hashtag stop sarcoidosis, hashtag gratitude and given for this campaign. Those are all going to be really helpful, just like easy ways that anybody can help make an impact through this messaging. Another way is if you haven't already signed up for our e-newsletter, you can just visit stopsarcoidosis.org and fill out a quick little form, and that way you can stay up to date on any new exciting updates and just keep in the know with all the different things that are going on and ways to get involved. We've also launched, just until the year end, an exclusive pop-up store that has some really
A pop-up store, okay.
Super cute.
Yeah.
With merch?
Yeah. little holiday pop-up store. Yeah, so we've got some
Okay.
like ho kind of holiday merch, some like cozy sweaters and whatnot that will just be available to the year end. So I've already bought one. It's really soft. It came really quickly too. So I've definitely encouraged people to check that out before that comes down. And yeah, continue to promote awareness of sarcoidosis by wearing these things.
All right. So you mentioned hashtags because every time I post, I automatically post hashtag sarcoidosis. And what sarcoidosis awareness, is that the second one that you like? What's the next best hashtag?
Yeah, that's a good one. Another one that we use a lot is like stop sarcoidosis, is that's
Stop
kind of like
sarcoidosis.
our mission, sarcoidosis awareness. Sometimes I'll throw in rare disease or chronic illness, other things that tend to get a lot of views, pulmonary, if you're talking about that. Those are all kind of hashtags that tend to trend.
Yeah. Okay. I need to be better about posting on my Instagram and Facebook accounts, but this podcast takes a fair amount of time to put together. And you guys do a
Right.
great job of redistributing the podcast. So thank you so much for all of that. You host it on the website, and it's usually the latest episode is highlighted in the newsletter as well, which is wonderful. Very much appreciated. And one of the things that typically comes up is people can double their uh, their contribution if their employer is one of those employers that graciously matches whatever their employees believe in. And is that something that you guys depend upon, Jennifer?
Yes, absolutely. We're very proud to partner with Double the Donation, and you can check if you go to our website, stopsarcoidosis.org/donate. Scroll down, you can type in your employer and see if they double, sometimes triple,
Right.
the donation that you make. And it literally just takes seconds to check, and it's very automated. They make it very easy, and we certainly would welcome everybody to be checking to see if that is the case for them.
Okay. I know my company does. So that's
Excellent.
yeah. So that's it always makes me feel good that if I pony up that they're going to be right there behind me and it's going to have a little bit more reach. So we're looking ahead to 2025, right? And if people need one more reason to consider giving, Cathi, is there anything else you can tease us with? Some initiatives maybe where that money might be going that you know about, or you can give us a little glimpse into?
Yeah, all I can tell you for sure is that 2025 is going to be a really big year for FSR. We have been working with a lot of patients, researchers, clinicians, our board of directors and scientific advisory board to put together some really exciting initiatives, both stemming from our research agenda and our patient support. So lots of events, local, our patient summit, lots of exciting reports with our patient registry and our Voice of the Patient reports, and just a history of FSR throughout the 25 years we're really excited to share. Um, and a lot of that stems from the research funding that we've been able to get. So we're really excited about releasing these reports that are, aimed to help implement new strategies to, de-risk clinical trials in pursuit of better therapies and a cure. So we're looking to release that agenda as well next year. So yeah, lots of exciting things to come.
Stay tuned for sure.
Yeah, all right. It sounds, Jennifer, like there's a lot of cool stuff that you're raising money for.
Yeah, absolutely. This is it's a really exciting time, and I think it's really the amount of different initiatives that FSR has right now is it's just amazing. And I keep saying every dollar really does count. Everybody sharing their stories. I think that's really important when we're looking at this. Just getting the word out about sarcoidosis is super important.
Okay, Cathi, any last thoughts?
I would just say, thank you to the community for, being with us for these past 25 years, every step of the way. And to everybody who's new to join, you're welcome here. And we would love you to be a part of this. It's not necessarily a fun community to be a part of, but we're all in this together. And if you are looking to get more involved, visit stopsarcoidosis.org, reach out to us, and you can find out more about this Gratitude and Giving campaign as well on our website.
All right. Is there a specific link where people can go right to that?
Yeah, it's kind of long. We can drop it, but it's stopsarcoidosis.rallybound/2024 gratitude campaign. So it's kind of a mouthful, but we
Send
can
me that
share it.
link and I'll put it in the show notes so people can just click.
Right.
Okay,
And
that
if you
sounds
get
good.
to our homepage, there's lots of things that link to it from
You
there.
can link to it, right?
That's probably the easiest thing to do. Guys, thank you for everything you do. I really, really appreciate it on behalf of those of us who are patients. And let's just hope that people are hearing what we're talking about and that they want to be a part of it by making a donation here at the end of the year.
Thank you so much, John. This was just wonderful, and happy holidays to everybody listening.
I feel like a zombie, just feeding and stumbling.
Many thanks to Cathi and Jennifer for joining me here today, and of course to all the other folks at FSR who do what they do on so many fronts. And in particular, I'd have to mention the CEO, Mary McGowan, and Tricia Shivas, who is the Chief of Staff and Strategy at FSR. I spent a lot of time with them at that externally led patient-focused drug development discussion in front of the FDA in Washington a couple of months ago. And all I can say is I don't know how they're doing everything they do at the pace they are doing it. I mean, those folks must get up in the morning and just get on it until they go to bed at night. And then they get up and do it again, get up and do it again. I went because we were in D.C., Mary and Tricia and I, for a day of rehearsal and then a day to actually talk to the FDA. And I had gotten there a day early, as did Tricia. So, we went to dinner a lot. And we talked about what's going on at length. And I just have to tell you that everyone at FSR is working really hard, and that this is a first-rate organization that's out there working for all of us in the sarcoidosis space. So thanks to Cathi and Jennifer for joining me today, and thanks to everybody at FSR. By the way, I want to let you know this is a good time to contact me if you'd like to share your story on the podcast. It's carlinagency@gmail.com. And I am looking to start filling out the list of guests who will be joining me through 2025. And I hope you will contact me and let me know. And that would be if you're a sarcoidosis patient, if you're a caregiver, if you are a nutrition expert, if you are a researcher. I'm just trying to think of anybody in the sarcoidosis space. Maybe you're a counselor and you help people with sarcoidosis, or maybe if you're listening, people in those places that you would like to suggest, and so let's get them all on the air, so to speak. So let's do that. All right, the official Sarc Fighter song is "Zombie" by Mark Steyer and his band, the White Hot Lizards. And I recently got an email from Mark that I'll be sharing in the next podcast, but his wife did complete the New York City Marathon as a fundraiser for FSR, and he detailed all of that. But with everything going on today, when we're talking about the drugs and so forth, I wanted to wait, and I'll share that with you in the next podcast. The podcast comes out every other Monday. As I'm speaking today, my trusty dog Dougal is curled up on the chair in my office, and my other trusty dog Shandy is curled up on the dog bed in my office. So I have support on two fronts today. The backstory to the founding for the Foundation for Sarcoidosis Research is episode 11 with Andrea and Redding Wilson. Don't forget to follow Sarc Fighter on Facebook and Instagram. I'm even on Peloton. I ride my Peloton bike, especially during the cold weather months. I'm there as Sarc Fighter. You can find that. And my cycling blog, Carlin the Cyclist, does have a section called Cycling with Sarcoidosis, so you might want to check that out. And if you're new here and just trying to figure out what Sarc is, listen to episode 2 with Dr. Simon Hart. That's my Sarcoidosis 101 episode. And my story is episode 1. Please send me an email if you'd like to comment on the show or participate. It's in the show notes, carlinagency@gmail.com. Until next time, keep fighting.
Learn to